I am recording now. Cool. Alrighty. So, let me get the third and final book of this goddamn series. Oh, yeah, I need to take pictures. This one is, I think, my favorite picture of all. It's Maybird, Warrior Princess. And that's what she's supposed to be wearing, the bathing suit. That's what her bathing suit looks like. So it's, a one piece. And as you can see there's Pumpkin. Yeah. And there's also oh my god, yeah, she does. Right? Alright, I'm gonna just send a quick picture of the map. No, that was not a good picture. Okay. There's a map. Can't really... Oh, I didn't get everything of it. Let me do it again. So there's this side. I think this side you couldn't really see. And it's still a little cut out, but you can see it says Beaucleve Cast. That's supposed to be Beaucleve's castle. Yeah, I think if you put all the three maps of the three books together, I think that's all of the Ever After. There's not really that much, much more. I know, right? So cool. Not that much more that the author gives us. Yeah. God, I love this book, and I think it's gonna take some time for me to read this whole book, just because I have school started, so I have other things to read. So I'm thinking I'll finish this book in a month, maybe 2 months. But I'm gonna try and pull some strings here and there. I've been studying a lot at the school, and I'm gonna plan to do most of my homework stuff at the school. And then when I hang out with you, listening boy number one, because yeah, I can. I get to do homework and listen to books. Yeah, I know, because you're in graduate school. Okay. Okay. So, we left off. Well, we ended the second book with May returning home, back to her mom. She is still needed by the Ever After and the Lady of North Farm. So, how will she get back to the Ever After? That's, the bigger question there. Even I don't remember how. Probably not, but she's gonna do it anyway. Alright, alright, alright. I'm so excited. Alright. So this is book 3. Maybird, Warrior Princess. Until she's 18. Yep. Basically. That's what I would do. Alright, so we begin with the prologue as usual. Alright, prologue. The night Maybird came home, the cold, bright stars looked down on Bury Swamp, warm as a fuzzy mitten and full of sultry shadows. Explicitly told her not to. Space hell. It's not hell. I just think all the spirits go there, so it's not hell. It's just ever after. I don't know. I need me some water. It's the underworld, but in space. I mean, there's some good spirits. It's not the underworld. Greek underworld where all spirits go. Okay, okay. Okay, you got me there. You got me there. You were right on that one. Anyway, the night Maybird came home, the cold, bright stars looked down on Bury Swamp, and Bury Swamp, warm as a fuzzy mitten and full of sultry shadows, looked back. Through the trees, the stars had a view of a tiny clearing and a rambling white farmhouse, and the stars could just make out the shadows and faint shouts of joy that issued from the house on one particular night. The night that May Ellen Bird returned home from the world of ghosts. For May, those first days were vivid and bright. Her eyes hugged the dear crooked lines of White Moss Manor. She ran her fingers along the spines of crickets and salamanders, sat under shady trees and in secret hollows, peered into stumps made into frog motels, sank her feet into grass that smelled like the color green, caught leaves the color of October, lay on patches of pine needles with her cat. There were the angles and colors of things alive and bright, not shady and incandescent. Uh, there were the angles of colors of things alive and bright, not shady and incandescent and deceased. And there was May's mother, Ellen. Mrs. Bird's cheeks seemed to have grown rosier. Her hair had gone softer. Her smell had gone sweeter. Her voice more warm and rumbly, while May and Somber Kitty had been away. For nights, she and May slept side by side, and Mrs. Bird would reach out for her in her sleep and hold her so tight that May promised herself she would never leave home again. And then, bursting into the quiet bliss of May, oof. Yeah, oof. We all know where that's gonna go. We all know what that a lie. That's a lie. Well, she promised herself, so she did. I'm pretty sure. Well, maybe she did say that to her mom. But yeah, not a good thing to think or say. Yeah, that is also true. And then, bursting into the quiet bliss of May, her mom and her cat were the reporters. They descended on the yard like gypsy moths. May poured out her story on TV cameras, to doctors, to crowds of classmates, full of worry and excitement and hope. And, to her great surprise, she was greeted by rolling eyes, snickers into sleeves, and sometimes out and out laughter. May met these reactions with bewildered hurt, but it was her mother who hurt her most of all. Mrs. Bird did not snicker or laugh or roll her eyes. She only pursed her lips into a tight, worried, disbelieving frown and asked May why. After all they had been through, she couldn't tell the truth. That was when May stopped talking about the ever after altogether. It was a long time before her mom, in hopeless frustration, stopped asking. Sometimes after Mrs. Bird fell asleep, May would slide out of bed and creep into her own bedroom, still the same as the day she had first left Bury Swamp, hung with photos of far-off places, clothes hangers twisted into animal shapes, and strange inventions and fantastical drawings of monsters, rainbows, and fairies, of May's first pet cat, Legume, who had died when she was small, and of an odd creature with a pumpkin-shaped head and a mop of yellow hair in a tuft. Here she would scratch Somber Kitty's ears absently, her eyes trained on the stars outside her bedroom window. As she blinked in the dark, she pictured the shadows of the ever after, a dusky sky above it full of swiftly passing stars, the starlit stretch of the hideous highlands, the oily blackness of the Dead Sea, the purple glow that had surrounded a place called the Carnival at the edge of the world. Had they needed her there, like they said they had did? Yeah. Had they needed her there, like they said they did? Let me say that again. I feel like I'm saying that really weird. Had they needed her there, like they had said they did? Sitting small and thin upon her bed, May could not believe it was true. Still, and still, one afternoon, May found herself sneaking into the woods, Kitty at her side. They made their way beyond the great uh, briar briar patch, where uh, where she knew she would find a lake that made a door between earth and the world of the dead. But what May found there was not a lake at all, but only a patch of mud where the lake had been. She had looked at Kitty and sunk down fast, as if she had lost her legs. Meow, 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 Kitty had inquired. Any ghost worth its vapor knew the water was the only doorway to the ever after, and despite the name, it hadn't rained or snowed in Brewery Swamp in over 100 years. Cloudy skies sometimes hung o- uh, Cloudy skies sometimes hung over town with the promise of precipitation, only to scour along to luckier, wetter towns like Muddy Creek or Droopweed or Skunky Holler. The lake was gone for good. Hold on. Just need to do something real quick. Okay. The lake was gone for good. May's door to the other world was closed, and although she waited for a sign, a message from the lady of the snowy north, proof that she was needed after all, nothing came. Over time, all grief dulls, and May's was no exception. There were her mother's smiles, and let me start over. Over time, all grief dulls, as May's was no exception. There were her mother's smiles. There were bike rides with Kitty and icy mornings in the winter, and bees sitting on watermelons in the summer, and great orange harvest moons in the fall. And after May's had remembered something else, something before, something glowing and vast and doomed. Her heart slowly began to forget. Her telescope in the attic, unused, she failed to see the signs. They came in every shape and size: Las Vegas style neons, green highway style, some in spotlight letters written across the dark sky, and they were all pointed in the direction of Earth. They were covered in different words, but to all the same import. Where is she? Word had traveled across the galaxy that, like a bad game of telephone, I can't talk for whatever reason. Word had traveled across the galaxy like a bad game of telephone, but May, fading away like a star herself, didn't hear. On the windowsill of her bedroom, a cricket said, "Cheep, cheep, cheep." In downtown Brewery Swamp, a spider in the rebel of the old post office felt a strange vibration in the atmosphere. At the edge of the White Moss Manor lawn, the woods gaped, its leaves whispering a question to one another every time their shadows touched. Will she come? Will she come? Somewhere far above, the world of ghosts waited. The seasons rushed through Brewery Swamp in great whirling circles, the moon setting in a different place each night. The stars seemed to migrate in circles around the world, but the whole but the whole but the whole show was lost on her. May Ellenbird had stopped looking at all. And that is the end of the prologue. Damn. Rip ever after. Rip. Yep. Rip. Alright, and now we're on to part 1. Part 1. A May-shaped hole. Okay, and here's chapter 1. Probably the longest title of this book series. Chapter 1. Maybird went to the land of the dead, and all she bought me was this lousy t-shirt. In an empty closet in the south bedroom on the second floor of White Moss Manor, the clothes... Fucking nice. Yep. I'll say it as an encore again. Chapter 1. Just so you know what kind of audience this book is for. It can be scary at times, like listening boy number 1 has said, but you know it's written for like people in middle school. Chapter 1. Maybird went to the land of the dead, and all she brought me was this lousy t-shirt. I think that's great. Oh. Hold on. I just want to see how much I want to read tonight. Okay. I don't know how much I want to read tonight, but the night is still young. I've only gotten 20 minutes of recording, so I'm good. In an empty closet in the south bedroom on the second floor of White Moss Manor, the clothes hangers jangled, as if they had been touched by a cool breeze. On the bed by the window, swathed in an old quilt, lay two lumps, one girl-sized and one cat-sized. A dark head and a pair of ears poked out from the top of the blanket as the lumps stirred. May sat up, wondering what had woken her, and crawled out of bed. Skinny as a stick bug and long as a shoelace, May, at age 13, was a tall, lanky sort of girl, with legs like gazelles and long, graceful arms that seemed a little unsure where they should tuck themselves. Yes, there's a bit of a of a time gap, I guess you could say. Like a not a time gap, something like a time lapse, time jump. Yeah, time jump. Yeah, so she was 10 when she got into Ever After, and this is 3 years. When I read this, I'm like, oh my god, 3 years! Oh, I thought it was gnarly. I was just like, whoa. Man, what I'd kill to have like a good beer with me right now. I mean, I have ciders, the Wicked Grove ciders, but I like your dad's beer a lot better. I don't know, just it's good. But for me, I'll just have water for now. Okay. Um, the hair that tumbled down her back was long and black. It glistened stubbornly in the cool December air, glossy as silk spun by caterpillars under the moon. Her brown eyes were as wide as windows, but unlike her hair, they barely glistened at all. Somber Kitty poked his head from out. Uh, Somber Kitty poked his head out from under the covers to gaze at her, wrinkly and bald, with just the faintest hint of fuzz covering him, and bat-like ears as big as his pointed head. Somber Kitty was a hairless Rex, and looked like a cross between melting ice cream and an extraterrestrial. He sneezed before tucking his head back under the covers disgustedly. It was one. It was too early. May gave the closest May gave the closet a curious look, a glimmer of something hopeful in her eye, and then she shook it off. And then she shook it off, sighed, and began to dress. Her room had undergone a vast and miraculous transformation in the past 3 years. Where fantastical pictures used to hang from the walls in sloppy collages, they were now posters of pop stars and favorite movies. Where there had been inventions strewn across her desk, there was now a basket full of makeup, hairspray, and CDs. Only two drawings remained, one of Legume, the dead cat, and one of a creature with a lopsided pumpkin-shaped head. From its spot tucked away in the corner, it watched May's comings and goings with a crooked, ghastly smile. She pulled on her long johns, then her jeans, and a bright pink sweater. She lifted Kitty out of the bed with one hand, tucked him across her shoulder like a baby, and hopped down the stairs. White Moss Manor never glowed with homey warmth and good cheer quite the way it did at Christmas. The downstairs hall was filled with the scent of the great pine tree she and her mom had bought and decorated the day before. May slid her socked feet down the crooked, creaky hallway, breathing in the thick smell of fresh holly and evergreen sprigs. She was on her way to the kitchen when she heard a sound coming from behind her down the hall. She switched directions and sock slid to the end of the hall, and through the open archway through the open archway into the library. White Moss Manor's library was dusted and lopsided, with books lining its shelves from floor to ceiling. Ooh, that's what I like to have. Um, the tree lights cast their sparkling reflection across the dusty old book spines, and across the couch where where Mrs. Bird lay watching TV. On the screen, a reporter was sitting in the backyard of White Moss Manor. A 10-year-old May sat beside him, skinny, tiny, and pale, looking so bedraggled she might have just tumbled out of the dryer. The man's hair was slicked back with shiny gel, his mouth open in a big fake smile. Ellen Bird looked up at her daughter and scooched back to make room for her. "We can change it if you want, honey. They're doing a Christmas special of their favorite news stories," she said. "That's okay." May crawled onto the couch beside her mom, and the two curled up to each other like twin caterpillars. Summer Kitty sniffing the crack in between them for a cozy place to snuggle. Sunday mornings at White Moss Manor usually involved eating popcorn and watching a favorite DVD, often Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which Somber Kitty enjoyed most of all. No matter how many times had seen herself on TV, May always found it a bit eerie. She gazed at the image of her 10-year-old self, wondering if she had ever really been that person at all. Uh, we're here with a girl who needs no introduction. Unless you've been living under a rock the past few weeks, you've seen her. Called by many the eighth wonder of the world. Her face appearing across the globe. Sorry, I got caught in. Yeah, go ahead. Nice. We're here with a girl who needs no introduction. Unless you've been living under a rock the past few weeks, you've. What? Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's finally come on. Finally. Okay. I will be right back. That is a dramatic change because he has the little mullet thing. Yeah. But cool. My brother just wanted to show me something. But I am back. I am back and better than ever. Okay. Okay. Alright. Again for like 30th time. Just kidding. Um, we're here with a girl who needs no introduction. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few weeks, You've seen her. Called by many the eighth wonder of the world, her face appearing across the globe on newspapers, magazines, and even these. He held an armful of paraphernalia, t-shirts, printed with Maybird went to the land of the dead, and all she brought me was this lousy t-shirt and squirt bottles labeled everlasting water bottle. I don't need to tell you that psychiatrists have come thousands of miles to study her. Physicists have examined her hair, her fingernails, even the stuff inside her ears. And still, we're no closer to understanding the mystery. How May Ellen Bird walked into the woods and failed to come out again for 3 months. Fuck, dude. I forgot how long she was out there. From like the two books, it seemed like she was there for like maybe 3 weeks, maybe even a month, but yeah. I mean, it's awesome, but like, damn. The reporter squinted meaningfully. A growl came from somewhere off camera, and both May and the reporter looked off screen, where Somber Kitty had begun to grow restless. May motioned him to shush as the reporter turned back to her, clearly annoyed. May, he said as he laid down the souvenirs, tell us, do you still claim that all those months you were on a journey to the land of the dead, which you say is located, he turned to the camera, on a star? He lowered his voice an octave, called the Ever After. He turned back to Maybird, raising one eyebrow dramatically. May stared at the reporter, then off beyond the camera at Somber Kitty. Yes. Then the reporter cleared his throat. And so what you're saying is there's a world of ghosts up there, terrorized by a fearsome spirit named Evil Knievel and protected by a wise old lady of North Farm who lives in a giant magnolia tree in a snowy valley at the northern edge of the realm. May hesitated, then corrected him softly. It's Evil Poclevel. Right. And there and ever after, you were assisted by. The reporter studied the notepad he pulled out of his pocket. A ghost with a big squash-shaped head. A girl named Beatrice who died of typhoid in the early 1900s. A deceased Italian Air Force pilot named Captain Fabio, who writes bad poetry. And a mischievous, handsome boy named Lucius, your love interest. Not to mention your hairless cat. The reporter smirked off camera in Kitty's direction. Well, I don't have a love interest, May stammered, blushing and clearly bewildered. And you say you ended up there by falling into a lake that no longer exists? He nodded over his shoulder. In the woods behind your house? May nodded uncertainly. Now, May. The reporter's smile turned serious. You have a cult following among people who believe in things like UFOs, yoga, and Bigfoot. Let me run some rumors by you. Truth or false? Are you carrying the spirit of Bigfoot's two-headed love child? May shook her head, her brown eyes open wide. Is Barbra Streisand really Cleopatra reincarnated? May bit her lip, then shrugged. Do you believe the reports that appeared in the questionnaire a few weeks ago that, thanks to your story, NASA is planning to launch a space probe to look for the world of ghosts? May shook her head. May, you claimed that, according to something called the Book of the Dead, you're supposed to save the ever after from certain doom. He looked her up and down intently, as if to indicate the ridiculousness of this claim. given her small stature, her knobby knees, her timid disposition. He leaned forward. His voice softened dramatically. If that's true, why haven't the ghosts come back for you? Did they forget you exist? On screen, the 10-year-old maid looked over her shoulder toward the woods behind her. The trees shook and swayed in the breeze, turning up their leaves. They seemed to wave at the camera forlornly. A sad, hurt kind of tilt played in the corner of her lips, and her brown eyes grew even wider. I don't know, she said. Maybe it's because there's no they maybe it's because there's no such thing as ghosts, the reporter asked, smiling obligingly. May let out a long, soft breath. The reporter cleared his throat. One more thing. He looked like he could barely hold back the laughter, and he gave the camera a conspiratorial glance. As our resident expert on the undead, can you tell me what the chances are that zombies might come and take over our shop? Eh. As our eh. As our resident expert on the undead, can you tell me what the chances are that zombies might come and take over our shopping malls sometime soon? He made a dramatic, spooky face at the camera and pretended to shiver. Click. The TV went off. Zombies. Of all the ridiculous... Mrs. Bird's voice trailed off as she sat up, rearranging her curly brown hair, which had shaped itself into a lopsided lump against the pillow. She shook her head. May pulled the blankets tighter around herself. Mrs. Bird looked at her and tilted her head slightly, sympathetic. Oh, don't look so worried, honey. People forget these things the minute they turn the channel. When you're grown, it will all seem like a distant memory. Mrs. Bird stared at her a moment longer, intently, the way she sometimes did. At times like these, May knew her mom was wishing she could see right into her brain and find the hidden threads of the lost 3 unbelievable months that were woven there. But to ask again would be to break an unspoken agreement they'd had for years. To never mention May's disappearance or May's fantastical story of the ever after to each other again. It always ended up hurting them, and it always ended up them hurting too much because neither could give the other what they wanted. Finny Elway called again, Mrs. Bird said, running a finger through May's long hair and pulling it back to braid it, absently. He certainly is a nice boy on the phone. May didn't answer. Finny was a boy in her class. Out of all the boys at Hogwallow Middle School, he was probably the cutest and by far the most interesting. He had hazel eyes and brown hair that flopped down in such a way that made the other girls practically faint. And he didn't eat his own boogers, which was a giant bonus. But whenever he called, May pretended to be sleeping or to have laryngitis, or she would duck under the nearest piece of furniture so her mom wouldn't be able to find her. Why don't you go for a walk, honey? It's a beautiful day out. Mrs. Bird nodded to the window, where pure white winter sunshine was pouring through. But May only shook her head. She wanted to stay under the blankets with her mom, where it was warm. Many things had changed for May since she was 10. She stopped telling bedtime bedtime stories to her cat. She stopped coming home with leaves in her hair and rocks in her pockets. Stopped trying to fly by attaching herself to bunches of balloons. Stopped dressing Somber Kitty as a warrior cat. And though truly she sometimes felt like something inside her had disappeared, it seemed that that must be an it seemed that that must be a natural part of growing up. Standing out too much made one feel too alone to do it forever. Sometimes, though, when she least expected it, while she was biking to school or out in the car with her mom, watching the words roll past, or sitting in the rocking chair on the front porch, it came. The feeling that she had let something big and important slip away, and May could whisper to Somber Kitty her deepest secret of all, that sometimes she wished she had never come back from the ever after at all. I am in the mood for peanut butter kiss cookies, Mrs. Bird said, standing and stretching. She waggled her eyebrows. May leaped from the couch, sending Somber Kitty tumbling. Naturally, he landed on all fours and yawned, as if he were always getting tumbled off couches. Don't mind if we do, May replied. Sometimes, like when she and her mom baked cookies together. May was sure of every reason in the world she had come home. May was sure of every reason in the world she had come home. In the kitchen, they turned on the radio and listened to Christmas music, shaking back and forth in unison. Mrs. Bird measured out all the ingredients for the cookies, and May stirred. Some of the batter ended up on May's fingers. She pretended to yawn, wiping it on her mom's rosy right cheek. Her mom stuck a finger in the batter and pretended to fall forward, her battered finger landing on May's nose. Somber Kitty sat on the linoleum floor, swatting his reflection in the glass window of the oven. When the news reports interrupted the music, May grew quiet and looked at her feet, because the news always made her worry about people who didn't have enough, or trees that were being knocked down to build stores. But then the Christmas music was back, and they were dancing again, in a cloud of the scent of baking sugar. Half an hour later, they had 2 batches. One of them burnt because they were too busy pantomiming, dashing through the snow to hear the buzzer. May was just putting on the oven mitts to load the 3rd batch when the phone rang. Meow! Somber Kitty growled, staring at the phone, his tail going ramrod straight. May looked at him curiously as Mrs. Bird crossed the room to grab the phone. Hello? She said, when she scooped up the receiver. Hello? She looked at May, shrugged, and hung up. No one there. Be right back. She sashayed out of the kitchen door to the last strains of Jingle Bells, leaving May giggling behind her. May could hear her footsteps creaking up the old steps and down the hall above. The minute she turned back to the cookies, the phone rang again. May, will you get it? Mrs. Bird called from upstairs. May looked at Kitty. Kitty's tail was still standing straight up. He stared at the phone as if it had grown wings. For a moment, May's heart thrummed, and then she realized how silly that was. Who was she hoping for? The bogeyman? Somebody would think you'd never heard a phone before, May said, scratching his ears and then walking over to press it. No, May said, scratching his ears and then walking over to answer it. She pressed her ear against the handset. She heard only 3 words, and then the line went dead. May stood, staring at the receiver, a great chill sweeping up and down her body, her ears tingling and a thick lump in her throat. A movement drew her eyes to the doorway, and she jumped. Mrs. Bird stood there, inquisitive. Who was it? May swallowed. Standing in the doorway now, her mom looked relaxed, happy, content, happy. She thought of before, of her mom's worried looks and the nights her mom held her so tight, scared of ever losing her again. No one, May said, hanging up the phone. Weird. Her mom shrugged and crossed the room, pulled the cookie tray off the counter, and loaded it into the hot oven. May watching her, trying to catch her breath. It couldn't be, of course, what she thought. Oh, I found a typo in here. Well, not a typo, but they forgot to capitalize something, unless they forgot to put a comma in here or something. Or it was supposed to be another sentence, but they forgot to capitalize the first one. Interesting. It couldn't be, of course, what she thought. It had been too long. It belonged to the things that were tucked away. But the voice on the other end of the line had seemed just like the one that belonged to someone with a pumpkin-shaped head and a crooked, ghastly smile. It had seemed like the voice of a ghost named Pumpkin. It had said, "We need you." And that is the end of chapter 1. Chapter 1. Oh boy, what's gonna happen? Oh boy. God, I love this book. Thank you, Jody Lynn Anderson, for making this book. I love it. Woo! I know, right? Oh, so intense. All right. I think I'm gonna stop at part 2. Part 2 isn't. I'm at 19 right now, and part 2 starts at 37. So I think I can do some more reading until end of part 1. Oh shit. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Sorry. Got freaked out. There's like a bug on my. It's one of those like pincher things, and it's on my. Gross. At least I can see it, so I can kill it. But I'm just like, gross. I really hate stuff like this. Gross, and it's like all big and fat. Gross. Okay, actually, I'm gonna get the vacuum. Because I'm gonna faint over this shit. No! No, I can't do that. No. I'm sorry to all the animal lovers, but I cannot. I can't. I have to get rid of it. I am not. Oh. No. I thought it was a spider. I was gonna be like, my god, that's a big spider. But no, it's like a pincher. One of those things. And I'm just like, uh. Yeah, let me show you a picture of this fucker. Yeah, those are gross and I don't want it in my room. Fuck, and it's pretty big too. Oh. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, I am back. I'm sorry for muting myself on the recording, but I just I couldn't have you guys listen to that. I mean, listen to my. I think. Fuck, what are they? They're earwigs or. Let me see. Hold on. I think that's what they're called. Earwigs. Earwigs. Yeah, earwigs. They're gross. Yeah, they're called earwigs and they're gross and disgusting. And that one was pretty big, just fat. And I'm just like, oh god, gross. It's kind of like it looks kind of like an earwig. They're kind of cool looking. They're kind of gross looking with their pinchers and like I don't know. Oh god, I feel like I've gone through a traumatic moment just now. Sorry, you guys. I am. Yeah, that's what they make. That's what makes them scary. Yeah, you're right. God, for a second I thought it was a spider, and I feel like I would have freaked out more. But it's not a spider. But if I see a spider that big while I'm reading, I'm going to have a heart attack. Okay, I think I'm done rambling. At least I hope I am, for your guys' sake. Mm. Okay, I'm gonna read more because if I don't, then you know, I don't know. Okay. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. I'm just like, that was so gross. So gross. Oh, God. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm being a real big baby right now. Like, I don't know. It's just, yeah. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm being a big baby. Feel like I've just gone through like a traumatic event. Okay. Okay. All right. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. A bad breath from the past. The most exceptional thing about the town of Hogwallow, West Virginia, one town over from Brewery Swamp, was that nothing exceptional ever happened there at all. Every morning, the Hogwallow Jet and Gallop opened at 8 a.m. on the dot to welcome exactly 3 customers. Every every afternoon, Bradley McDrummy, Bridie McDrummy sat on her front porch, scowling at her neighbor's poodles because of his exuberant because his exuberant fluffiness seemed to her rather orny. And every weekday, Hogwallow Middle School, a long rectangular building perched on a dreary, droopy hill, uh, opened its mud brown double doors to 53 students who entered with an air of irresistible ennui. Get him, Bertha. Get it. Okay. Ennui? What's that? No, not that. I don't want that. Ennui. Ennui. Okay, that's how you pronounce it. Um, yeah. And every weekday, Hogwall Middle School, a long rectangular building perched on a dreary, droopy hill, opened its mud-brown double doors to 53 students who entered with an air of irrepressible, not whatever I said, irrepressible ennui. The Friday before Christmas, May sat in last period homeroom, awaiting announcements and staring out the window. The school TV program, Channel Smarty, blared from the wall behind the door, peppered with ads telling Sister Christopher's eighth grade class how to get her skin clearer and their hair glossier. Wait, let me say that again. The school TV program, Channel Smarty, blared from the wall by the door, peppered with ads telling Sister Christopher's eighth grade class how to get their skin clearer and their hair glossier. Several of the more pimply students in class listened raptly. May gazed at the lawn. Yeah, May gazed at the lawn outside, thinking, as she had every day since, on that weekend's phone call. More and more, she was convinced she had been mistaken. How would Pumpkin call her from another galaxy? It had been. It had been. It had probably been a telemarketer. Uh, he had. He had probably been saying something like, "We need you to check out this great deal on our new nose hair trimmer, only $19.99." She sighed, resigned. Yes, most likely. The call had been about something as boring as a nose hair trimmer. May heard her May heard a thwop behind her and turned to see that a note had landed on her desk. She looked over at Claire Arnerson, whose hair was combed in a perfect ponytail, who seemed to get prettier every day. He was always changing to turquoise nail polish. Hold on. Where was I? Okay. She looked over at Claire Arnerson, whose hair was combed in a perfect ponytail, who seemed to get prettier every day. He was always changing to turquoise nail polish when everyone just made the switch to fuchsia. Claire gave her a secret wave. May smiled back and unfolded her note in her lap. "Will you sign this for my cousin?" was all it said. May dug for a pen in her desk. Being a celebrity had made May something of a sensation at her school, and after 3 years, that still hadn't faded. After all, the only ever time the only other time anyone from Hogwallow had made the news was when Jebediah Hickory Butt had gotten a mouth stuck in his ear in 1987, and penned the fated to be famous poem. What did you say? I could not hear. You see, I have a moth in my ear. Since the day she had first appeared on TV, May had been treated like hog-wallow royalty of a sort. She was always asked to sit with the other girls at lunch and was always included in parties. She was even asked from time to time to autograph notebooks and lunch bags and shirt collars. But being popular also seemed to come with lots of rules May hadn't anticipated. In gym class, she had to make sure to run slower than all the boys because Peter Kelly had insisted girls were supposed to be slow. In library class, Claire insisted she read books like Kissing Boys at the Beach when she really wanted to read about Egyptian mummies or space travel. May sometimes felt like she was fitting herself into a smaller and smaller box. But it seemed better than being a weirdo who used balloons to try to fly. It was easier, at least. Maybird, she signed the notebook No, she signed the note from Claire and looked up, just happening to meet the hazel eyes of Finny Elway. She frowned at him and looked away. She tried to look as bored as possible. For the most part, boys were scared of May. It was the way she had grown over the years, into that kind of prettiness that wasn't so easy to see. It was the way her dark hair glinted like a wildcat's, and it was her mysterious connections, however little anyone actually believed in them, with ghosts. But truly, the fear was mutual. May knew she wanted a boyfriend one day, but how did you ask a boy out anyway? How did you keep it together if one asked you out? How did people kiss? It made her think wistfully of how easy, in many ways, things were for ghosts. Life held so much. Life had so much challenges that the land of the dead did not. May, didn't you have an announcement? Biting her lip, May shuffled Claire's note into her desk as a flash, and looked at Sister Christopher, standing in her brown nun's habit, and staring at her expectantly. She slid out of her desk and shuffled to the front of the room. I just wanted to remind everyone about my birthday party tomorrow, she said, feeling shy. It was her first ever real birthday party, aside from the ones attended only by cats named Legume or Summer Kitty. In fact, it was Summer Kitty who had talked her into this one by dragging his old party hat out of May's closet and carrying it around like a kitten, meowing pitifully. If Summer Kitty didn't have some fun soon, May feared he would be lost in a sea of melancholy forever. Excited whispers rustled through the room. Everyone wanted to get a glimpse inside her mysterious, rambling house after all this time. As Sister Christopher stepped forward to continue afternoon announcements, May drifted by the teacher's desk on her way back to her seat. But halfway past, she froze. On the middle of the nun's desk was a newspaper. On the front page was an old, grainy black and white photo of someone May knew very well, a ghastly-looking woman with rotted teeth. May reached out and pulled the paper to her, swimming in goosebumps. Mystery of disappearances still unsolved after more than 100 years. And under the photo, the caption: one of the victims, Bertha Brett Waller, known for winning personality and bad breath, who disappeared shortly after the Hogwallow hoedown in October 1897. There were other pictures beneath Bertha's. One of a group of 12 miners who, the caption explained, had inexplicably drowned in a lake in the woods. One of the three nuns who had disappeared after skipping off into the same woods 25 years before. And then May caught something else out of the corner of her eye that made her start. There, at the top right hand corner of the paper, where the date was supposed to be, were the words, "Be ready," and the unmistakable eyes of the Lady of North Farm printed above them. May dropped the paper. When she looked up at the corner again, the words were gone. If it hadn't been for the phone call from a few days ago, she would have thought she'd imagined it. But then she heard the squeal of desks behind her. She turned to find the whole class chattering excitedly, running to the windows. May walked toward them slowly, afraid of what they were all looking at, of what she might see outside. Every child in ninth grade had their noses pressed against the windows, looking at the sky. May leaned forward and looked up too, but she saw nothing but a gloomy sheet of white clouds. "What's going on?" she asked Peter Kelly. Didn't you hear? Didn't you hear? Uh, didn't you hear Sister Christopher? Claire sang. May shook her head. Claire nodded to the sky, a giant grin spreading across her face. A giant grin spreading over her face. It's amazing. What? May asked, following Claire's eyes, bewildered. Where have you been, May? In outer space? They're predicting snow. And that is the end of chapter 2. Sorry. Let me just turn this down a little bit. Okay, I think I'm done. The lady comes. Man, I need to buy some more turbo flamas. That's what I need to do. Tomorrow I'll do that. Yeah, tomorrow we'll do that. Oh my god, I can't believe it's Friday already. Jesus. Alright. We have 2 more chapters. Ooh. I am so sorry for those of you that are listening with headphones. I apologize so much. Alright. I'm so sorry. Alright. Chapter 3. First Snow. The day of her birthday party, May woke to a strange smell in the air. She blinked, sat up, and looked out the window. Great gray clouds streaked the sky above. The trees stood gaggled together in the woods, perfectly still, as if in anticipation of something big. The birds had disappeared, and the whole world seemed to be wrapped in a waiting sort of hush. And then it happened. It drifted side to side like a feather falling to the world below the. It drifted side to side like a feather, falling to the world below in slow motion. A snowflake. May gasped. She leaned forward and pressed her face to the glass. Another tufty flake fell past her window, and then another. They're coming for us, Kitty, she whispered. They have to be. Beside her was a rustle under the covers. Summer Kitty's ears, poking out, tilted and turned like satellites, and then the rest of his body emerged, shaking and twisting itself and lengthening out in a long taffy-like stretch. He yawned, sneezed, and licked his chops, looked at May bemusedly. Then he placed his paws on the windowsill beside her. When he saw the tiny white crystals, now several, drifting through the sky like plummeting moths, he let out another yawn, clearly unimpressed. No time to waste, May said. She hopped out of bed and made her shivering way across the room to her closet, opening the door quietly so as not to wake her mom down the hall. There, on the floor where it had sat collecting dust for years, was a cardboard box. She knelt beside it, pulling open the flaps and reaching inside. She took hold of a piece of fabric and lifted black bathing suit into the air in front of her. And ever after, it had glowed with swirling galaxies and supernovas. Now it was just a plain black bathing suit with silver sparkles. But it was reassuring to May, just now, to know that it was still there, tucked safely away. She laid it down, next, next sinking her hands into the soft velvety fabric of a garment that looked a lot like a cape with a hood, her death shroud. In the ever after, it had been the one thing that made her a vibrant, living girl, or a live one, as the living were called, look as deceased, filmy, and gray as the next specter. Hold on, let me just do something real quick. Yeah, I should have checked that before. Okay. Actually, I'll be right back because I need to see something real quick.
No, I mean they're doing it for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're. ¿Verdad, baby? Que
They're happy you're
the
coming.
Ryans and Gary,
Oh, they were so happy.
they're happy.
They were
They're so
so
happy.
happy to see us.
They
They
hugs
were
us
like,
and
yeah,
he gives us hugs when they're done and everything.
yeah.
Like all of them that come to the restaurant are just like, is it his like his sister, Ryan, his
Sister
friend?
wasn't there.
No,
Oh.
Sister's
she
not
doesn't
there.
play.
But the blonde one that gets the 32,
Yeah.
and then the little short one,
The short one, yeah.
those them three, and the red hair. You ever seen the one that is? He doesn't come with them during lunch, but he comes. He gets 17 with avocado. He's got red hair, and he used to. He moved to Arizona to go to school.
To school. He was doing like.
And now he's back, and he's like doing like a fireman,
Yeah,
or I don't know, something like that.
I don't remember.
His name is
Garrett.
Garrett.
Garrett. No, I don't remember.
Yeah, you should come. You should come and watch them. And they just.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, because it's only 40 minutes long, but it's co-ed. So you see the girls and the guys, and the girls just, they don't get, the girls are like beasts. And the guys, they just don't want to hurt the girls, but this time they didn't care.
Ryan.
So you wanted the patas, ¿verdad? And then yeah, and then we're like, because it's a small little like field. It's like indoor, but you are outside. But it's like they are in like a little.
Yeah.
And it's fun. But they get so happy. They get so happy like to see us. Oh my god. They're like we were about to leave, and he was coming out. He's like, man, I was coming out to see you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really happy.
So it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go next week.
Yeah, you gotta be very abrigadito.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go to my room. Good night. Okay. I am back. I am back in black. Excuse me. Okay. um. So we were at. May. She let it down. She laid it down. Next, sinking her hands into the soft velvety fabric of a garment that looked a lot like a cape with a hood. Her death shroud. And ever after, it had been the thing that made her a vibrant, living girl, or live one, as the living were called. Looked look as deceased, filmy and gray as the next specter. It too looked like an ordinary lump of fabric now. May patted it gently and replaced it lovingly into the box. She looked over her shoulder at Somber Kitty, who lay on the bed watching her, still as a stone sphinx. Come on, Kitty, she said, pulling him off the bed like a string of spaghetti, and hanging him over her shoulder. We need to be ready. By that evening, Brewery Swamp was blanketed by a thick layer of pure white snow. Through the windows, it looked a lot like a different world, one coated in marshmallow frosting. May scurried about the manor getting ready for her guests to arrive, just to have just to have something to do for herself. 3 years before, she would have paid the world's riches to be having her very own well-attended birthday party. But suddenly, she didn't care very much about the party at all. She hung balloons, a disco ball her mom had bought in Hogwallow, and two pinatas her and her mom had made. And then she started in on baking cookies. The whole while stopping at every window to gaze at the woods or peer into the clouds above, as if the lady of North Farm herself might suddenly appear there. Across the front yard, under the canopy of trees, were dark spaces that seemed to beckon, promise, whisper. Summer Kitty lay draped around her neck, on guard, uh, his tail close, his tail close hangered straight. Anticipation, anticipation fluttered across. Anticipation fluttered about the house like a clutch of butterflies. It landed on everything May touched. Sorry, I just lost my place. Awesome. Hold on just 1 second. Sorry, I'm just waiting for my parents to get out of the hall. I always get a little embarrassed when I'm reading aloud. I don't know why, just stage fright, I guess. Sorry, and I was also reading the last pages of the book, and I was just like, oh man. Oh, God. It's so good. Okay. Yes, spoilers. Ah,
I got your car registration.
oh, you might. Okay, cool. Cool, my car registration. Okay. Alright. Okay, sorry. Back to reading. Anticipation fluttered about the house like a clutch of butterflies. It landed on everything May touched. Knock, knock. Oh, knock. Oh my god. Knock, knock, knock. uh, Both May and Kitty jumped at the sound of the door at 3 p.m. sharp. Mrs. Bird, who'd been helping in the kitchen, gave them both a look as she walked into the hall, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. "Nobody's going to get that?" she said, shaking her head and pulling on the doorknob. There, bathed in wire, were Claire Arnerson, Maribeth Stiller, and Mary Ruth Le Tourneau. Le Tourneau. Their cheeks rosy, snow bouncing off their hats and stuck to the fabric of their mittens. They burst inside, pouring gifts into May's arms at the same time they poured out waves of chatter. "Can you believe it's snowing? How long do you think it will last? Do you think we'll be off from school?" After the guests arrived in bucketfuls, all brimming with the same bright talk, wide-eyed, all brimming with the same bright talk, all wide-eyed at their first glimpse inside White Moss Manor, though of course they had all seen it on TV. There was a great stamping of boots in the hallway, a loud shuffling of stockinged feet on the creaky old manor floors. A great clinking of mugs of hot cider in the kitchen, oohs and ahs at the house's great halls and staircases, at the disco ball and at the cookies May and her mom had made. Raspberry chocolate, violet mint, peanut butter, banana, all recipes May had created. May smiled a lot at everyone, like a good host, but it was like wearing a mask. She was dying to tell someone the truth, but she had learned from experience that she was the last thing that she but she had learned from experience that she was the last thing they wanted to hear. Mrs. Bird had cooked May's favorite homemade lasagna, and they all gathered around the table to eat, laughing and honking at one another happily. May sat at the head of the table, feeling almost like an observer instead of the guest of honor. Her mother set the casserole dish on the table, beaming at her proudly as if they had reached the pinnacle of happiness. May smiled back, but her eyes drifted beyond the table to the snow outside. She sat on her hands and tried to contain her excitement. She kicked her feet back and forth against the linoleum, her coltish legs too long for the chair. Finally, she couldn't sit another minute. "I'll be right back." She popped up from the table and headed up the narrow old stairway to the upstairs hall. She walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and stood in front of the sink. She washed her face. She straightened up, looking at herself in the mirror, smiling hopefully. The lights flickered. May jumped, turned back to the mirror, and looked around. Fear, absent a moment before, sent shivers racing up her spine. She stood still for a moment, breathing fast, staring about the room. She strained her ears for a moment, then, hearing nothing, reached for the handle and slowly tiptoed out into the hall. For a moment, the hallway lights glowed extra bright, and then they flickered again. The next moment, they were out completely. May swallowed, taking a few more slow steps down the hall and listening hard. "Pumpkin?" she whispered. She could hear the sound of her own heart beating, but nothing else. "Is it?" She gulped loudly. "Is it you?" She stepped toward the stairs and... Ah! Somber Kitty leaped out of the shadows, flapping his tail at her. Meow? He asked, tapping her shin with his paw, clearly wanting to be carried. May shook her head at him, silently chiding him for scaring her, then scooped him up into her arms and held him tight. Together they drifted down the stairs. When they appeared in the doorway of the kitchen a few moments later, they must have been a sight. May was as pale as a ghost. Summer Kitty had crawled around her neck, his tail straight as a pencil, his spouse sticking straight up, a worried look on his face. The table, which had been full of chatter a moment before, fell silent as everyone turned to look at them. May, are you okay? Claire asked. May looked at her mom, who was leaning against the kitchen counter. Their eyes met. At that moment, the phone rang. Mrs. Bird looked at the phone, then at May. She reached for the phone and picked it up, staring at May curiously, clearly not hearing anything on the other end of the line. No, I don't think so. I think she's just concerned about her. Claire doesn't come up much in this book. I'll tell you that. So, probably a no. Yeah, I'm sorry. That'd be cool, though. Oh, yeah, this will confirm it. Oh, no, this will confirm it. Now, just wait. Mrs. Bird looked at the phone, then at May. She reached for the phone and picked it up, staring at May curiously, clearly not hearing anything on the other end of the line. May swallowed. It's the ghosts, Mom, she said, looking around the room, embarrassed that every face was intent on hers. She cleared her throat and went on. They're trying to reach me from the other side. She straightened her shoulders. They're coming for me. The screams that issued from White Moss Manor were the loudest in Bury Swamp history. May's friends exploded out of the house like fireworks in a wave of high-pitched squeals, pouring onto the front lawn, scattering to the farthest reaches of the yard and screaming for the parents, shivering wildly without their coats and hats. The party ended in record time. Within half an hour, the parents of Hogwallow had descended on White Moss Manor, taken their children, and left. The last person to depart the premises was Claire Arnerson. May stood on the porch to say goodbye, but Claire, her ponytail bouncing frantically as she ducked into her dad's SUV, didn't look back once. May watched her go, and her hand up in the air in an unseen wave. She was pretty sure it was her last birthday party. Inside, her mom sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, surrounded by plates full of plates full of the half-eaten lasagna she'd made, the balloons she'd taped to the walls, the piles of uneaten cookies she and May had the piles of uneaten cookies she and May had baked. The look on her face as May walked in was enough to fill May with shame. I'm sorry, Mom, but May held up her hand in a stop motion. Not now, May. May stomped up the stairs, Summer Kitty trailing. I feel like May just wanted to do it just to fuck with the kids. Damn it, May. I don't know. Well, I feel like she did it just to like mess with people. Because I feel like she knows that most of the people know. Well, I what I mean to say is she I think she feels like most of the people feel like what she's said so far is fake. So she's just adding more fakeness. I think she meant to say it in a sarcastic way, but also kind of like low key, like, really, this is what's going down kind of way. So that's like how I like to see it. Like, she said it in a sarcastic way, but in like low key actuality, like she really meant it. That's what I. That's how I believe why she had announced it like that. May stomped up the stairs, Summer Kitty trailing behind her with his tail in between his legs. It wasn't fair. She was only telling the truth. Once they were tucked in her room, she pulled the box out of her closet. She had pulled out her bathing suit and her death shroud, rebelliously shredding her party clothes in one smooth motion, and shrugging into the others in the next. The bathing suit stretched. The bathing suit stretched to fit, feeling cold. She put on her fuzzy. Well, yeah, but also like maybe some kids believe that it's real, and maybe I don't know. Maybe they just got freaked out. Like, this girl's crazy. Let's get out of here, sort of way. Anyway, the bathing suit stretched to fit. Feeling cold, she pulled her warm, fuzzy pajama pants and her sneakers and turned to look in the mirror. She looked like a girl playing dress up, but she also looked ready. Oh, hence the picture on the last book. Why she's dressed like that? Those are her pajama pants. May put Kitty's shroud on him too, and then she waited and waited. The minutes ticked by and nothing happened. It began to get dark outside. When the phone rang at 9, May clearly jumped out of her skin. She ran to her doorway and listened as her mom picked it up. A few minutes later, Miss Bird appeared at the stairway. She stopped halfway when she saw May watching her. "What are you wearing?" she asked, staring at the shroud and the bathing suit. May looked down at herself. "Just, messing around," Ellen sighed, sounding exhausted. It was the phone company. Apparently, our line's been spliced for a week with someone's in Hog Wallow, a pizza delivery place. May stood, transfixed. "We need you to bring us a large pepperoni." To bring us a large pepperoni? Her heart sank through the floor. Sounds like people all over Hog Wallow have lost power because of the storm, too. May was quiet as a stone. Had she imagined it all? Pumpkin's voice? Did that mean she had imagined the words at the top of the newspaper, too? Ellen gave her Ellen gave her a searching look, then walked up the rest of those stairs to May. Let's forget about this and go back to normal in the morning, okay, honey? She bent over and kissed May's cheek, engulfing her in her warm, familiar jasmine smell. May sank into her hug. I want you to go straight to bed. Okay, Mom. May felt very small. Hey, Ellen touched her cheek. You're my girl, no matter what. Don't forget that. I don't know what I'd do without you. May nodded. She watched as her mom walked down the hall and disappeared into her room. Could it be? Could it be that it was nothing? Would she stay here in Brewery Swamp with most of her heart tucked into the shadows? Standing in the hallway, with her mind light years away, in a snowy forest at the northern edge of the world of ghosts, she was a sort of May-shaped hole. It seemed that for all her life, she would feel like she belonged in neither one place nor the other. She would only ever belong somewhere in between. And that is the end of chapter 3. Chapter 3. No, chapter 4. Yeah, chapter 4. And I think you're gonna find the title a little interesting. Chapter 4. Widow's Walk. Meow. In the dark, later that night, Somber Kitty crawled onto May's lap. The shutters banged with the storm outside. The trees swayed, lit dimly by the moon behind the clouds. The snow pattered against the windows in great diagonal specks. May listened to the sounds of her mom getting ready for bed, then closing her bedroom door. She stood up and crept into the hallway, to the door that led to the attic. Slowly, carefully, she pulled it open and climbed the stairs. The attic of White Moss Manor was narrow and dark and dusty. May tiptoed across the slatted wooden floor and sank next to her telescope, which was covered in a fine layer of dust from years of neglect. She stared out the window at the woods. The trees swayed back and forth in the snowy breeze. On one side of the room was a ladder that led to a widow's walk, a sort of thin railed walkway that crossed the roof of the house. May looked at it. She hesitated only a moment. The hatch was rusty, but with a great push, May managed. Ooh. The betrayal of May leaving her mom again. That's the betrayal. That's the real betrayal. The the hatch was rusty, but with a great push, May managed to push it up, and it swung open with a clatter. She paused, listening for any sounds of her mom below. The world above was muffled with snow. Yow! She hissed. Kitty had tapped her heel with his paws, not wanting to be forgotten. She scooped him up, stuffing him under her shroud. May rose gingerly, trembling, until she was fully outside, enveloped in the cold air. Oh shit, I forgot how she gets to the fucking. Oh man, I forgot. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, just hold on just a second. Okay. May rose gingerly, trembling, until she was fully outside, enveloped in the cold air. The wind felt like it was blowing right through her bones. She stepped carefully along the widow's walk, all the way to the edge of the roof where it ended, and peered down at her front yard and the woods beyond. They looked so far away. They looked so far below that May, who was scared of heights, got a little woozy. She looked up at the sky instead. Her heart began to tear and ache. Then all the thoughts she'd been ignoring for so long flooded in on her. Were they okay? Were her friends in the ever after okay? Had she let them down? Had they forgotten her? Where are you? She said to the sky. Tears gathered in her eyes, and the wind blew them sideways. The clouds were the clouds roiled. The sky was blue. The snow on the lawn lifted in clouds and blew here and there in tiny tornado-like swirls. In the clouds of white, in the clouds of white, in the clouds of white, May thought she could see ghosts. She could see ghosts, faces and shapes of the dead all around her. She held Kitty tight in her arms and kept her face turned up to the sky, as if waiting for someone to descend from the storm clouds and lift her away. And then, a strong gust blew against her, and her feet slipped just slightly. She jerked forward against the railing, ever so softly, but rotten. It crumbled like paper, and May and Kitty went sliding forward, right through it. May scrambled to stop herself, but it was too late. They slid a few more feet, then fell off the edge of the roof. They looked like blackbirds falling through the sky. And that is the end of part 1 and the end of chapter 4. Who knows? Maybe. Maybe she is dead. I don't really remember. Hella dead. I mean, her house is a 2-story, so there's a high possibility that she is. Alright, well, I just gotta give everyone thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next chapter.